All right. So what ends up happening is one of the reasons why we couldn't connect to our LDAP is because we haven't created any users in the darn thing yet. We have an administrative user, but he's not really in the LDAP system. So if you type, oh wow, it would help if I turn on the board, wouldn't it? I'll wait for the screen to monitor it. But if you type and you try to do a search of your LDAP, what you're going to end up with is really interesting. Nothing exists in here. So what we want to do is we want to create some users first so we can actually then use our PHP LDAP admin guy. So we can use this one, because otherwise these people don't exist and we end up with this wonderful, doesn't matter what you type in here, unable, invalid username or password, and it's because there's nobody in here. So if you type LDAP search minus small x minus 3 capital L's minus a capital H LDAP colon 3 forward slashes and then minus B, and then your whole set, right, whatever you set in your LDAP config, you should end up with this, no such object. So we have no objects. Well, yeah, don't use mine. So what we want to do is we want to create our first user. And in the book, we have this really handy guide on how to create the user. We're going to create our first one. So what?
Mine works, but I did some stuff different in my config files.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll check your config files later on. All right. So if you get the no such object, that's cool. If you get other stuff, that's cool too, right? Because your configuration file is the big key to all this. All right. But what we want to do is we kind of want to set up a person. So what we want to do is we want to go into, we want to check our directory. So what we want to do is we want to go into schema. All right, and then we want to more a file, and we have to be sudo nano add content .ldif. All right, so what we're doing is we're basically going to create a file that's basically a script that's going to add people. All right, so our domain, our DN, OU equals people, DC equals your LDAP name, okay. So our first couple words, what we do here, right, is we're setting up an OU, an organizational unit called people, right? And you could name this thing anything you wanted to name it, right? And then our domain instructor, well, whatever yours is, right? This is mine. CIS217, blah, blah, blah. Object class, we're making an organizational unit. So remember, when you looked at your schemas, you saw things in there that were object class, passwords, all that other kind of good stuff. So what we're doing is we're calling it an object class, and then it would be OU, not out. So we're creating an OU called people now. All right? So that's what this line does. It creates an OU, an organizational unit called people. Okay, and then the same thing. We're creating an object class for an organizational unit called groups. All right. So we've now made two organizational units, one called people, one called groups, with these two lines. All right. And you have to be like really perfect with the typing. I'm just using a space. So between the DN colon, it's just a space. Yep. And if you see typos, all right, you feel free to go back and fix them. Yep. Okay, then you're making one that has yours would be rack blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that means nope, that means my typing is really bad. Because I'm following the instructions to the letter. Right? Because sometimes when I go ahead and I get creative, my chances of blowing things up are actually really good when I start getting creative when I'm doing scripting. So once I'm done making this, I'll probably go get creative, but right now I'm actually going to follow the instructions. So your instructor is actually going to follow the rules. Yay! Everybody, yeah, basically, that's about what we got here, right? No, it is not as exciting. It is not as exciting. All right. So we made a group with a group ID number of 5,000. Its common name is minors. We've made two organizational units, one called people, one called groups. Does it make sense on what we've typed so far? All right. Now we want to make a DN. UID, user ID equals John. Right? And we want to drop them in our OU. We want to drop them in people. And because I made people lowercase in the other one, I have to make it here. No, there's no cutting and pasting. Cutting and pasting is bad. All right. So once we're done with setting up all of our OUs, right, what we want to do is we want to make a person who's got an account, and it's a shadow account. So this may or may not show up in our Etsy password and our Etsy shadow files, right? So then we have to kind of fill out who this person is, right? So we kind of need to know a little bit of information about him. Let me finish up. Before you ask, let me finish up. So he's got a user ID of John, a system name of Doe, given name John, CN John Doe, CN John Doe, display name, UID number, right? A user ID number. And then the group number's got to match the one we put in earlier. We give him a password, geckos, login shell, because we always have to give people a shell, right? Bin bash, bin sh, bin ksh, whatever we want to give them, whatever system you're using, and then a home directory for John. Okay, what was your question, sir?
Well, if you feel like explaining it, when you say you create a shadow user and they may not show up in your Etsy or password,
They're going to actually show up in LDAP as distinct from the Unix system. Because remember, when you're making LDAP, you're actually making a separate authentication cycle that's outside of the actual operating system itself.
so somebody's looking in your box, but they can't see that user unless it's in that box.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
All the passwords and just clear text.
When you're doing it as a script, yes. Yes. Passwords in clear text is generally a bad idea. But for this example, we kind of have to go with what we got for this version of LDAP. Yes, sir.
Did you need to do back-to-back comment names? Did you think that? Or is that it? John Doe, back-to-back. This is redundant. That's all, guys.
You are correct. No, we don't need the secondary John Doe. That's just because I really love typing, so I wanted to do it twice. Because typing is awesome. I like John Doe, because John is awesome. And he is everywhere. John Doe is like better than Where's Waldo. You run into him everywhere. You run into him in every organization. You run into him a lot on the internet.
And he's died like a million times.
Yeah, he keeps on dying and coming back. You keep on banning him, he keeps on coming back. I mean, it's just amazing what you kind of see. Okay, and once you've got that, you want to save it. All right, so does everybody kind of have this? Let me just more this file real quick. I did it underneath the Etsy LDAP directory. All right, so go back and let's check this and make sure I got this correct. Because if I didn't, bad things will happen to good people, and we don't want bad things to happen to good people. All right, so our DN, OU, people, my LDAP server, object class, organizational unit, people. And remember, if you type it in one way, you've got to be consistent all the way through. Right? If you named it lowercase people, remember this is Unix. It's very different from uppercase people. So lowercase people and uppercase people are two distinctly different containers in this. Right? Did I do our group right? Groups. So I got that good. So we made a group. We made a GID number of 5,000. So my GID number matches out here. Right? So we made them just basically a standard BOSIC group. We called them minors. Right? DN, UID, John, because John Doe is awesome. Right? He's in the people container with a lower class P. Instructor, my place. We made a person with a standard account and then basically not going to show up anywhere else. Given name, John Doe, UID number, 10,000, and then GID number. So as long as everything matches out, we should be okay. Right? Theoretically. Theory is always good until you press the commit button and then everything blows up. And then troubleshooting happens. Because troubleshooting is what? Fun. Fun and good. All right. So does everybody have all this? Are we good? And then there's the bottom part. We gave them a shell. We gave them a home directory. And we tried to make this fun for everybody. All right, once we have that, we want to see if we've actually done this right. So our command Well, actually, before I move on, let's make sure everyone's with me. Is everyone good? Everyone got their little config file typed up?
Should be in the schema folder, correct?
Are we good? Well, that's where I dropped mine.
Okay, that's not good unless something.
All right, so do we have everybody with us? Are we good? Can we go on? Is everybody happy? Does it feel like Monday again? No, this is better than Monday? It's Wednesday. There's no camels walking around saying, do you know what day it is? Yeah. All right, let's see if we did this right. So we want to go sudo ldap add minus x minus d cn equals instructor. Cn equals admin. dc equals instructor. dc equals CIS217. dc equals highline. dc equals edu minus capital W minus F add content.ldif. All right, so sudo ldap add minus lowercase x minus uppercase d, and then who you are, right? So we made an admin. And if we're really lucky, and I didn't blow up my own LDAP this morning dinking around with it, which is a very real possibility, because you go in, you get it working, and you want to make it work even better, right? So you go start changing things around, and you don't make backup copies. And then we see what happens. Enter LDAP password. Can't connect to LDAP server. All right, so now we have to troubleshoot. All right, because if I can't connect, then I need to figure out what's going on here. So where am I going to go? Where's my first place? How do I bring up the last bit? All right, let's see what we got. Can't connect. You've been a slot. Critical glib object signal emitted as gcheck instance. Instance failed. Just time. Got some problems with PHP 5. And it didn't record it here. All right. So, now it's time to debug. Yep. I'm sorry, can you repeat that whole question again for me? No, if you didn't do sudo and it didn't save your edits, you have to retype that file, because retyping that file is interesting. All right, so here's what ended up happening, right? So there's a log file called the auth log, just in case you haven't seen this before. All right. So if you have stuff in here, this log here, the auth log, will tell you everything that people, when they try to log in and log out, right? So when people try to log in and log out, you kind of get to see what's going on here. So if you go more on your auth.log, this will tell you all the authorized logins and usernames and everything else that are going on with your system. So if you're doing information security, or if you want to troubleshoot someone's account because they can't log in, the auth log is an amazing place to go, because it may not show up in syslog, but your user bouncing off may show up for stuff in your problem. Yep. So if someone hacks into something, then yeah, you've got. So you can see here where I'm like doing a restart, right? So we restart slap D and all the rest of it, right? So we get Pam. Pam is our security manager, right? Pam is awesome, right? Pam authentication failure errors, all sorts of failure errors. All right, and when we go down to what we tried to do here, right? What we see here, and user root command user sbin LDAP add, right? Basically said that this took, but it didn't take. But it showed me what was going on, right? And I have no other errors to help me troubleshoot this. So that's where this gets to be interesting. But if I cannot connect to the server, right, how do I check to see if the server is actually running? What do I have to put in front of grep? All right. So I do have LDAP running, right? So did I make a mistake in the configuration file? All right, so more.
I was going to say, you don't have to restart.
No, not to do this, right? So did I? So the question is then is, who's my administrator account? And that's where this gets to be kind of interesting. So let me go back and let's troubleshoot and see what we've got cooking, right? We have our file saved off, but this is going to take me a minute to troubleshoot what's going on here. Yep.
By default, it would be CN equals manager.
It would be whatever we typed in here,
Okay.
right? But it should be admin or administrator. So I can try it. Try it like that. Oops. So, but again, my problem is can't contact the LDAP server. So, one of the things that you're going to end up doing is you're going to spend a lot of time troubleshooting things, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I cannot advocate one search engine over another one, right? But sometimes if you throw the error code in here and you don't really know where to actually start doing stuff, right? You can start looking up things to see where to kind of help you out. Because remember, we have nothing in our auth log. It just shows us trying to do it, right? We have nothing in syslog that shows me that there's an error. So one of the good things about doing stuff is sometimes you need to go someplace else for help, right? Especially on the troubleshooting side, right? And again, I'm not advocating one thing or another. I'm just saying that sometimes you need to go grab help, right? So, what does it want? So, the question is, did I write a certificate for my server? Right? I did not write a certificate for my LDAP server. Right? So, if I don't have this, all right, we're using LDAP modify as a normal user. So if I don't know how to use LDAP modify, all right, and I'm on Ubuntu. So again, it's kind of part of the process, right? And again, a lot of this stuff may or may not actually be readable to where you guys are at, right? So let's go see what's going on with our servers. Let's go see if we can find the solution to this as a team, right? So I'm going to stop the video here, and then we'll come back and see what we found out. So let's give ourselves 10 minutes.